What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here. We're breaking down week 19 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. We have a week 1 of the NFL playoffs wildcard round, 6 games, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and 1 on Monday. Obviously, there are several slates to go over this. We're just going to go over the 6-gamer, and obviously there's going to be a lot of overlap as we're pretty much going to talk about every single team. And if you do enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Let's dive right into it. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position. I didn't take any away. This is the entire QB pool this weekend on the 6-game slate, so that's 12 guys to pick from. And that's one of the issues with the playoffs is that these teams are good, and typically teams that win games have pretty good quarterbacks for the most part. Obviously, Russell Wilson, CJ Stroud, you're not too interested in them this week, but I didn't take the time to make an actual player pool here because I want to talk more so stacks. But if you are playing cash games this weekend, I would say Jaden Daniels or Sam Darnold's probably at the top of the list for me. You can throw in Baker Mayfield as well. I think that's probably my top 3. Baker and Jaden Daniels. This game does have the highest over under the week. It's a tight spread, high implied team totals, not defenses I'm not overly concerned about. Love both of them in cash games. And also Sam Darnold, I know coming off a horrible game versus the Detroit Lions. I don't know what was up. He kept missing guys high in the end zone. Just absolutely brutal, but good spot versus Los Angeles. And this is also one of the games of the week. 1.5 point spread. We're in a dome. Should be back and forth. Lots of great options in that one. But let's move on from cash games and we'll talk some stacks for tournaments. And if you guys ever do access to the entire NFL sheet with all the data that I look at each and every single week on projections for both sides, DraftKings, FanDuel, the optimizers, ownership projections, cheat sheets, the entire slate, set it out for every single player that is going to be relevant for this weekend. And the cheat sheet going over cash games and tournaments. You can find that link down below in the description or the pinned comment. We have NASCAR starting very soon, which I am extremely excited about, and I do have some new stuff to mention once we get closer to the season. We're heading back to the scatter plot. It's kind of my favorite thing to look at. So north-south, if you're new here, that's DraftKings ownership. East-west, that's your implied team total for this week. And we're just comparing the two. So if you're in the upper right quadrant, those are your high projected totals, chalkier teams. Tampa Bay, Baltimore, yeah, they're up top. Bottom right are usually teams that are pretty solid to target in tournaments. Bottom left is going to be your low implied team total, low owned teams, and the top left of our lower total, high chalkier offenses. Now, that's not to say we can't play players from those teams that are on the left side or on the bottom left. Like, I don't have anything against Lab McConkey this week, even the Chargers. It's just talking about the team overall compared to the other teams on this slate. So if we were looking at the chalk team, I feel like it's been Tampa Bay in the top right for the past month now, but they keep putting up points. They keep being in good spots. Great spot versus Washington. I like the entire team. Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving will probably be the chalkiest player on the slate, if not close to it. Maybe Puka Nacua. And Mike Evans, he got the record. They forced him the ball at the very end. It was really cool to see. Jim McMillan has been awesome the past month now. Kate Otten, Payne Durham, whoever else they throw out there at tight end will have some value this weekend, like the entire team. Great spot versus Washington. You can find Washington here as well. Jaden Daniels, Zach Ertz, Terry McLaurin. That's a perfectly fine stack. They got Austin Eckler back. He can help in the passing game as well. I know Minnesota busted very hard in the primetime game versus the Detroit Lions, but love the spot versus LA. Darnold, Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. Sign me up. I like the entire offense. And as for the Rams, they're kind of toeing the line here. Personally, for me, I just like Puka. Puka is in such a good spot. He's at a really nice price point at $7,600. I think he should be AK plus, so the price just seems a little bit low. But other than Puka, I mean, obviously you can have interest in Kyron Williams because he's just a starting running back that gets the bulk of the work, and this game should get a lot of points. But it's kind of just Puka for me from LA. Like, instead of playing Matthew Stafford, I kind of just rather play Sam Darnold personally, but I do understand getting off of Sam Darnold with Matthew Stafford because he's going to be lower owned. Buffalo just makes it in the threshold, but such a hard team to stack. Like, sure, they have a high implied team total, but I mean, who are you stacking with Josh Allen? If you're looking at his wide receiver props, I mean, they're all like 50, 20 yards. It's just very difficult to stack with him. So usually I just play Josh Allen naked. If I do stack with them, it's usually Khalil Shakur, but it can be very messy. Now, Philly, we still have to wait for Jalen Hurts to get clear from concussion protocol, but I think that's a pretty safe assumption that it happens. They're the only team here in the bottom right. So if you're looking for stacks for tournaments, Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown, maybe Devontae Smith, you run it back with one of the Packers guys. They did lose Christian Watson, so that at least condenses the target share from that very spread out target share wide receiver group. You could look at that in GPPs, but they're not my favorite team in the world, but a lot of people will say the same thing, and that's why they're going a little bit lower round. In Pittsburgh, they're almost off the page. That's how bad they look this week. Such a low implied team total. I really don't have much interest there at all. And then instead of team total, we're still comparing it to DraftKings ownership. We're looking at my personal projections for the stack. So quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end. We're excluding the running backs from this one, or we change some things around. So you're going to see a lot of overlap here because typically teams that project well will have higher team totals. That's just how the world works. For Tampa Bay, Baltimore, they're at the top. Minnesota, Washington, Buffalo, Los Angeles. Basically all the same teams that were in the top right are still going to be the top right. So those are really the teams to target personally. There's really nothing showing up tournament-wise that stands out too much. Maybe Philly, but when you take away the Barkley projection, the quarterback stack projection does put them in the bottom left, which is not saying you can't play players from that game. I'm just saying from a team perspective. And then once again, Pittsburgh, they're just almost off the page. They're just a team that I really don't have much interest in this week. If they happen to do well, so be it, but I think I'll still be able to make it work with other teams. And moving over to the build, I always have to do the disclaimer. I am not here to spoon feed you guys a lineup. You can apply a similar process, a strategy that I use for my 3-max/single entry hand builds to your own favorite plays using my process if you would like. I've had a very successful season. This is how I build pretty much every single time. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but it's what I do. And I mean, hey, you're watching the video, so maybe you're trying to learn something. This is how I do it. So I usually just pick a quarterback in this video from the pool that we're using, but I put every single quarterback, so I didn't really narrow things down much. But I do have a game that I like a lot, and that would be this Tampa Bay and Washington one on Sunday Night Football. And since we're going to go with a stack of that, whether it be Baker Mayfield or Jaden Daniels, if I go with Baker, I'm going to double stack it because he's typically not a rushing quarterback that's going to get rushing touchdowns, although last week he did have 70 yards on the ground, which was nice, but that was a career high. But I'll typically double stack with Baker. If I'm playing Jaden Daniels, he can get there naked, but I would like to stack him with at least one guy, whether that be Zach Ertz or Terry McLaurin, maybe even Zacchaeus. That's certainly possible. So let's pick one of those guys. I'm a huge Baker fan, but I do think Jaden Daniels is probably the better play in this game. Tampa Bay defense is just, it's bad, just to simply put it. And that rushing floor gives us a really nice floor and ceiling combination. So we'll go with Jaden Daniels here. We'll probably pair him with one guy, maybe two. It's a smaller slate, so I don't hate getting to do two, but it's not like it's a 3-gamer or a 2-gamer where I don't mind just getting crazy, quadruple stacking with teams. It's still almost a main slate because we did have an 8-game main slate, I believe, just a couple of weeks ago, so this isn't too far off. All right, we have running backs. Obviously, lots we can pick from here. I try to narrow it down to pretty much the pool that I would like it to. If you are playing cash games, on the 6-gamer, I think most people probably start off with Bucky Irving, whether it be DraftKings or FanDuel. He's just too cheap. Like, what reason for why is Bucky Irving $1,000 cheaper than Kyren Williams? I don't understand that. Bucky has been awesome this year. If you're looking at their numbers, Bucky Irving is averaging maybe not as many opportunities per game on the season, but in recent weeks, that workload has ramped up. He's been way more efficient, 5.4 yards per carry. Kyren Williams is at 4.1. I think the Buccaneers offense is definitely in a better position to score points, typically on a weekly basis at this point. So, I mean, I love Bucky Irving here. He would probably be the starting point in cash games for me this week at any position. Then after that, it gets a little bit muddier. I think Aaron Jones is in a good spot at $6,000 on DraftKings. Just very cheap, $7,400 over on FanDuel. Potential high-scoring game. He's using the passing game. He should get close to 15, 20 opportunities. It is kind of annoying that K-Makers is a bit of a thing now, but those are probably your two starting points. Of course, if you have the money to spend up for guys like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, great spots, great players. I have them both projected for over 100 yards rushing in this one, and obviously there's a very good chance they find the end zone. It's just a matter of being able to afford them. James Cook is a fine tournament option, but it is annoying that Josh Allen can obviously take rushing touchdowns any single time they get inside like the 3-yard line. But James Cook has been pretty good in recent weeks, and he is still scoring a lot of touchdowns this year. Like, let's not get it twisted. He's averaging a rushing touchdown per game on the season, which is still very good. J.K. Dobbins, I do like at $6,200 versus Houston. They are 3-point favorites on the road in Houston as well, which is nice. And Austin Eckler did return last week. He's only $4,800. He has PPR upside. I don't hate it if you're looking to punt running back. Okay, back to the build here. Let's grab a couple of running backs. Really like Bucky Irving, and since I know Baker Mayfield, I need exposure to the Buck points somehow. So we'll play Bucky here at $7,000, and then we'll probably move down to either Aaron Jones or J.K. Dobbins. I like either. Let's just roll with Aaron Jones for now and move on to wide receiver. And I never spend too much time on wide receiver because a lot of it's redundant. Like, on a small slate like this, we're talking stacks. I mean, if you have Sam Darnold, you're looking directly at Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison. If I am playing Justin Herbert, Matt McConkey, Quentin Johnson, If I have Jaden Daniels, you can't play him naked, but Terry McLaurin would be first on my list. You guys get the idea. It's pretty much as simple as that. I am not someone that really cares about matchups at all. I don't care if they're facing the best corner in the world. Teams move around their best players. They can get open. They can scheme them open. I just think it's kind of a waste of time. I really do think people kind of get caught up in stuff that really just doesn't matter on a week-to-week basis because they're just looking for data points to try to make sense of things. But anyway, if you're looking at cash game wide receivers, Puka Nacua would be the number one option for me. I think he should be like $8,000. He does not take advantage of that. He has the exact same yardage prop of Justin Jefferson this week, and he is $500 cheaper. And obviously, he gets peppered with targets. He's as consistent as it comes. He has a high ceiling, high reception floor. Like, yeah, I love Puka. And this is actually, I know we just talked about matchups, but this is literally the best matchup you can get as a wide receiver if you guys are someone that does care about that stuff, as Minnesota is giving up nearly 200 receiving yards per game to the position and the most fantasy points. If you are going down low, you can never really go wrong with guys like Courtland Sutton, Jordan Addison. I think Khalil Shakur is fine at $5,300. Allen's got to go through the air with the ball somehow. Jalen McMillan, I don't mind. But Rashad Bateman's probably my favorite value wide receiver on the slate. I wish this game was projected as not a double-digit point spread. But with no Zay Flowers, that does bump up guys like Rashad Bateman specifically. Also, Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews get the main bumps as well. Okay, back to the build. We have Jaden Daniels, and like I said, you can't play him naked, but I am going to stack him in this one. Might even double stack him. I don't know. Sue me. I can do whatever I want, I guess, on this. So we have $4,600 left if we go with Terry McLaurin. I would like one of the Tampa Bay wide receivers to run back with as well. I know we already have Bucky Irving, but I don't mind just if I think this game is potentially going to be the highest scoring game on the slate, then I want to get several pieces from it, no matter what it takes here. So I don't really think I'm going to be able to afford Mike Evans in this one, because if I plug him in, we're talking $3,700, which I know we can get a defense and a cheaper tight end, but I am not sure I want to get too down in the dumps there with salary. So we can save a lot of money with Jalen McMillan, who's been pretty solid as of late over the past month now. $4,500 left. That makes me feel a little bit better. And we move on to tight end. And there's really not much to say at tight end because it's typically just a stacking position for me if I'm able to do so. Like if I have Lamar Jackson, I'd love to get to Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely or both. If I am playing cash games though, honestly, Likely might be the best option here at $3,200. There's not going to be Zay Flowers this week. That just open a hole in this Ravens offense a bit for target share. And I really don't think guys like Nelson Aguilar, Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker, I believe that's like the wide receiver 5 over there, are just going to get major bumps in targets. I think it's obviously a nice bump for a guy like Bateman, Mark Andrews, but I think Isaiah Likely is going to be that one guy that likely does get a nice bump here at $3,200. He's showing up a lot in projections. It's a very nice value play. Everything else here, just clear stacking options like with Jaden Daniels. Love Zach Ertz. Wouldn't hate going that route either. All right, let's finish this build off. We have 4 positions to do it and right around $18,000. Let's plug in a cheap defense to see what actual kind of money we had to work with. Don't really want to play the Steelers, the Broncos, or the Packers, but man, I don't really know where exactly I want to go because none of these defenses look extremely appealing. Like the Chargers are probably the one I'd want to get to, but it's not really saving me much money, so we'll see what we have to work with here. I like to play Zach Ertz, and I think at flex to save money, we could probably throw in Isaiah Likely. Like on these smaller slates, I am not against the idea of going double tight end. I don't typically do that, but in slates like this, it helps you get an extra nice skill position player in. I am not fully against that. So unfortunately, I think we're just going to miss out on a guy like Puka, which I love Puka this week, so that does make it a little bit scary. In this specific route, we would have a guy like Ladd McConkey, Courtland Sutton, Cooper Kupp, Pickens, Addison, some pretty decent options there. To be able to afford Puka Nacua, we'd have to go $2,700 defense, which honestly, the Tex, like, I'm not in love with the Texans defense in this one, but I don't really have any Chargers in my build, so I don't think it's the worst route to go. They're also playing at home. I know they're underdogs, but I don't really think the Chargers are going to put up 40 points on them. So this build does not look too bad, at least the makeup of it. So we have a game stack of Tampa Bay, Washington, which is the highest over game of the week. Jaden Daniels double stacked with Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz, running back with Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving. We have a nice little mini stack with Aaron Jones and Puka Nacua in that Monday night game. And then we have Isaiah Likely just because he's absolutely dirt cheap and should get a bump with no Zay Flowers this week. And finally, we're going to run the optimizer here, see which players are populating. It is Thursday afternoon, so obviously things could change by the time, I guess, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday happens to kick off. But this is what we have to work with as of right now. We're going to do some quick settings. We're going to add a little bit of randomness. I did remove the ownership projections because, I got to save a little bit of stuff down there. I typically do tight end, flex, and eligible, but I'm not going to do that this week. And then we're also going to go to position stacks. We're going to stack QB and potentially wide receiver or tight end or both, maybe. Same team. We could force a run back. We could do this for specific teams. I'm not going to do it for this specific video just for the sake of time. And I think everything's saved. We'll run a quick 20 max here, and I'll see you in a second. And it looks like we got our build to run here. So let's pull up the player tab here. And yeah, a lot of Bucky Irving, a lot of Puka Nacua, Rashad Bateman, Aaron Jones. I personally think this is kind of like your cash 4 on this slate. At least my projections would think so, but I feel like a lot of people will be in the same boat. Cortland Sutton, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely getting pumped in a lot. See which teams. Baltimore at the very top, which I'm assuming that's a lot of Bateman and Likely, so kind of cheap pieces from that. Plus Mark Andrews, Los Angeles, Tampa, Minnesota. Pretty much the best games on the slate. Washington a little bit lower, but I do like pieces in tournaments from that one. Not surprised at Pittsburgh and Houston being at the very bottom of the barrel. And Philly, just kind of because of the price points, like Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts are just expensive. You know, it's kind of hard to fit. So I think that's pretty understandable. And at the very top of the list, Tampa Bay versus Washington is kind of the obvious game you'd expect to be at the top because highest predicted total game, a lot of good options in there. They're not overly expensive either. Both defenses can go some points, so I think that makes sense. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. But I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all next time.